So in the 25 spot, we've got Corbin Burnes. In 24, the second-year player Jackson Merrill. In 23rd place, Julio Rodriguez of my Seattle Mariners. Number 22, Fernando Tatis. And 21, the third baseman for your Boston Red Sox, Mr. Rafael Devers. Ards, what are you thinking?
This is an interesting spot. My one that jumps on this list. Okay, one, respect Tatis. Julio Rodriguez, like, dude, like when this guy's on, it's best player in the world. When he's off, he's still pretty good. Jackson Merrill, first year, everyone's kind of ranking him high in a lot of lists and stuff. Like, I love it. Like, dude, like he should have been rookie of the year if there wasn't a guy named Paul Skeens, like just doing unworldly stuff. I actually had money on Jackson Merrill being rookie of the year. Corbin Burnes is absolute stud. I get it. I'm agreeing with this. I actually think his numbers will decline being a Diamondbacks, but that's just because the baseball world. Don't be angry with that, Diamondback fans. Don't be angry at the world because he's really good. Devers. I'm not a big fan of Devers. Led Major League Baseball in errors as a third baseman for the last 7 years. Should not be a third baseman. We'll talk about this later, but I think Devers is a little high compared to at least even Tatis. Like Tatis is better than like Devers, I think. If I had put my money on who's having a better year, I'm probably going to have Tatis or Julio Rodriguez.
I'm a little shocked by where Corbin Burnes is. He's proved to be an ace. I don't think his numbers are going to go down that much. And then when you see the other pitchers on this top 25, I think he's getting a little bit of disrespected. But we'll look further on. So let's look at 20 through 16. And Chris Sale. See, this is where I have a problem with Corbin Burnes. I mean, Chris Sale had a great year, but he's always injured. I can't count on him. I would actually swap those two players. You let me know what you think. Zach Wheeler, number 19, such a good pitcher. Ketel Marte, number 18. Corey Seager of the Rangers at 17. And Ronald Acuna Jr. at number 16.
I think Ketel Marte is really underrated. Again, 18 is still amazingly high, guys. Like we're splitting hairs here. Really underrated. Look at his numbers last year, and you can make a very good argument for him at MVP, even with Ohtani. Ohtani did something record-breaking, amazing, first year ever doing it. Even with that, Ketel Marte had a arguably better year than Lindor, arguably better year than anybody else besides Ohtani and Judge. And it's really it's amazing because he's been like consistently getting better. It's not like he just had this blip. So that kind of bothers me when people kind of underrate him. I think it's because he's a Diamondback and he's a second baseman, and people just kind of disappear. Chris Sale, I do have the problem with. There's no question in my mind. Corbin Burnes is a better pitcher than Chris Sale. This isn't Chris Sale 10 years ago, and this is Chris Sale now, Cy Young winner. But like, are you expecting the same thing? Because that same thing is what basically Corbin Burnes does every year. I'm not disrespecting Chris Sale. To me, he's a number 25 guy, and Burnes is like, Burnes is so consistent. It's like, are you expecting the same thing at Chris Sale? How do we look at Chris Sale and go, yes, we're going to get the same production? Because if he gets any worse, Burnes is better. Zach Wheeler's like top 3 pitcher in baseball.
Criminally underrated.
Yes.
What do you think about Ronald Acuna over there at 16?
Dude, I got Ronald. I made a personal list of this for MLB Network Radio, and I had Acuna at like 7.
Yeah, that's actually where I would have him. I can understand, though, coming off a second ACL surgery, yes. You don't know what it is. But again, if all things are equal and he's healthy, he's top 5 player.
100%.
All right, let's look at 15 through 11 now. And we got Paul Skeens, number 15. I'll let you talk about that. Number 14, Kyle Tucker of the Cubs. Number 13, Little Vladdy. Number 12, Bryce Harper. I got a major problem with this. And number 11, Tyreek Skubal.
I actually have no problem with anyone on this list. Obviously, Vlad is the one that kind of jumps up, and Kyle Tucker kind of jump up. Like, Tucker's good. I don't think Tucker's quite on this level consistently. Like, if you're telling me 13 and 14, Kyle Tucker and Vladimir Guerrero, and you're talking about like a dude that's going to make like $400 million and a dude that's like 25 a year, like come on. Like one guy's worth 40 and the other guy's worth about 25. And so do you tell me they're 1 point apart? Bryce Harper I think this is a proper place right now for Bryce Harper at his career, knowing who's going to probably be in the top 10. Like Bryce needs to make another step up. Like he needs to come back a little bit to be back in that top 10. He just does. He does. I think Kyle Tucker is getting a lot of love here, probably a lot of too much love. But I think this is right. And Paul Skeens with what he did, if he does anything even close to that, like I'm sorry, if he has like 2 more starts, he's the Cy Young winner. That's
I agree
it.
with
Like
here's my problem with this. Number one, I think Bryce Harper is a top 10 player in baseball. I always will. There's some guys in the top 10 that I would actually swap with him. We'll take a look at that in a second.
I bet you would
Vlad,
like
I have
to swap with him.
I'm sorry?
Huh?
No, I didn't hear what you said.
I said I bet you would like to swap with him.
I would love to swap lives with him. Are you kidding me? Rich, be young, have women. I'll take that any day of the week. Paul Skeens, though. I understand what he did last year, and he was phenomenal. But first year, didn't pitch a full season, and you're telling me that you have more confidence in a second-year pitcher than Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, who's consistently been great over the last 3 or 4 years, who is perennially a Cy Young contender, and you would have Skeens over him right now? I know that at his peak, he is better than Zach, but just the consistency of Wheeler, and he's always excellent. I have a little problem with that.
That's a great point, and I respect it, and I'll never argue against it. I'm gonna have you 2 bets. Like there's 2 ways to think about it. One bet: if you had to bet $100, who's going to win the Cy Young this year, Paul Skeens or Zach Wheeler?
I would say Skeens because I think his ceiling is a little higher, and I also think that the publicity he gets helps him for the Cy Young.
Yes, 100%. I would say the same thing, but I would say this: like floor and ceiling. Right now, Skeens' ceiling's way higher, but Skeens' floor is probably is lower too. You know what you're getting from Zach, and what you're getting is top 3 pitcher in Major League Baseball dude. I remember playing with him with Mets. Like I didn't think this dude was going to be like this every year. Like I thought he's going to be good, but like this is great. Top 3 pitcher in baseball every year. I would flip him. I think I agree with you. At the same time, you're like, it's kind of hard to argue against either one of them.
No, it's very difficult. It's really, what you like better, which player you like better. But I'll tell you this, if I had the choice of getting one of the 2 pitchers for 1 year, knowing that I have a real legitimate shot at a World Series, I have to take Wheeler. I have to.
Here's the thing about too, like Tariq Skubal. Like I did the same thing. I put Tariq Skubal in my top 10. Tariq Skubal's an absolute stud, but like he had this monster jump where it's like, whoa. And he's doing what like he's doing Wheeler's kind of doing like almost every year. A little better, but like that's always an interesting one to me too. It's like I did the same thing, but I believe in Tariq, but I like I'm comfortable with this. I think Tucker's probably 10 spots too high.
It's funny though, you mentioned that Kyle Tucker is so overrated by so many people right now. I was listening to MLB Network radio the other day. Jim Bowden had him in his top 6.
Yeah. I think
people are in love with him right now, and he does a little bit of everything. And I know he's an all-around great player, but they're talking about this guy getting, $400 million next year, which I just don't see it.
I have a hard time with that one. It's interesting. Now, if he makes this a jump and does something like incredible, okay, but like I've got him. I mean, I've got him in a great spot. I mean, as a corner outfielder, I've got him the 4th best corner outfielder in baseball right now, probably ahead of Burns. Sorry, Corbin Carroll. I got my Corbins mixed up, and Tatis and Jaron Duran because he hasn't done it enough. Churio, Santander, Stephen Kwan. Like, okay, but like I don't think that's a $400 million range because there's a big jump I think between Kyle Tucker and Acuna healthy Acuna and him is a massive jump.
Huge. All right, let's move on. 10 through 6, please. All right, which I mislabeled. Number 10, they have Gunnar Henderson. I think that's a little interesting. Number 9, Jose Ramirez. Number 8, Freddie Freeman. Number 7, Yordan Alvarez. Number 6, Francisco Lindor. So I look at Freddie Freeman. I think he's a little too high. I would actually put Gunnar over there. I would flop him. I wouldn't have a chance. And I would actually flip Jose Ramirez and Yordan Alvarez. I think Ramirez is better than Alvarez.
This is really interesting. I didn't have Lindor in my top 10.
You're
I
crazy.
didn't have Jordan in my top 10. And I think I might have missed the boat on Jordan. But again, I'm looking at my top 10. I'm like, I no. I had Jose, J-Ram, I had him at 4. And I had Gunnar at 5. Same as you, apparently. And so I love it. I love it because you're doing such a great job, and just one little number, and you'll never forget it, and it's gonna be in your head so much. Jordan is so underrated, he's so good, but again, like at the end of the day, he's not a great left fielder. He's a DH, and he's gonna end up being a DH, right? Like, and Freddie, to me, Freddie was overrated. Now, at this point in the career, he's a leader. He's a good hitter. He adds to what they do, and he's just really solid. But he's like a 15, 20 guy now. That's not taken away from him. It's just like, how do you say he's better than Gunnar when Gunnar just like offensively and defensively just blows him out of the water? Like, Jose Ramirez is literally the only reason that team even makes the playoffs every year and what they do. And like, if you had them in the lineup, like J-Ram versus Freddie, like, the Dodgers lineup would be incredibly better. And I think Lindor is a great player, but like in the last like 3 years, he'd been really so until last year. He'd been good, not top 10, but not top 10 good, not top 6 good. He's a top 10, 12 player, and then last year he had an amazing year. And I just don't know if that's going to be Lindor. That's the best year of his entire career. I don't think that's Lindor. I think Lindor's a little below that. And to me, that jumps him right out of the top 10. Because if I had to go Lindor or Ellie De La Cruz, or Lindor or Mookie Betts, or Lindor and Acuna Marte, like, Marte's numbers were arguably better than Lindor. And they're years apart on this list.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I can see that.
Bobby Witt Jr., Jose Ramirez, Gunnar Henderson, like, they all had numbers that were borderline better and were more important in some ways. And I don't know. I'm not arguing it, but I'm like, maybe like 4 places too much, but Freddie should be out of the top 10 at this point. And Jordan, I can't argue with anyone on the list. I do think J-Ram and Gunnar should be higher. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, if you take Freddie out of the top 10, I put Bryce Harper in there, and I think that's much better placement for both of them.
Okay, yeah, and I move Acuna in there, and I don't know who their top 5 is. So for me, like, Acuna, Betts, Ellie, like, Ellie does need to make a jump up. Ellie needs to step up, but like, dude, like, there's no one else in baseball that has better tool set. And if he takes a little jump, and he's arguably he's a top 10 easy.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the final 5. And here we go. We got Mookie Betts at 5, Juan Soto at 4, Bobby Witt at 3, Aaron Judge at 2, and Shohei Ohtani at number 1.
Can't argue with this. Can't argue with it. I do think Mookie. I think Mookie may be a little high, because I think Mookie, when you look at it and you go, he is still really, really good. Like, for me, he's a 9. But like, if there's no Shohei, and it's just Mookie and Freddie, that offense is really slowed down a lot. And he's really good. But like, his best years are now a little past him. Just a little. Yeah. Just like a hair past him. I don't think he's getting better to me. And like, Juan, I can't argue with it. I can't argue with it at all. I had him at 6. Just because I think defensively he's a liability.
Yeah.
Like, in all reality, like, defensively he's a liability. Offensively, he's a great secondary piece. I think that's the thing about Juan Soto. What makes Juan Soto so good is he is Scottie Pippen, is that he can do everything. But if the offense has to go through him, it becomes dead, because his like ability of getting on base and causing problems become nothing, because you have nothing behind him. And so to me, that's the only problem with Juan Soto. You have to have a secondary player. Shohei, Judge, Bobby, Mookie, like J-Ram, like, all these guys can take over games.
Yeah.
Juan's taking over games is to work 2 walks and get a double, and and like, that double matters, but the walks and like, like, excitement. And then the next guy comes up and hits a 2-run jack, and you go, it all started with Juan Soto. But like, without the dude behind him, you're like, great walk, like, but like, Betts, all these guys take over games by themselves. Juan Soto can, but I think Juan Soto's greatest tool set is that guy before the guy before the dude that gets him in.
Juan Soto is an A-minus player, but his greatest ability is to make all the B players around him into A-minus players.
And to make an A- player into the A pluses of the world. And that, dude, that's oh my God, who was on the Lakers that was like on the Lakers with like Kobe and stuff, and he has like 7
Pau
rings.
Gasol?
What?
Pau Gasol?
No,
Andrew
he's like
Bynum?
point guard. Anyways,
Oh,
but we all need that player, and his Juan Soto is the greatest player in Major League Baseball that I've ever seen at making other players, minus once Jeter left the game, making other players better, and that's
yeah.
what he does without being a catcher. He makes everybody else in that lineup better. And like you put, like again, we watched what Judge did with him. He had arguably one of the best seasons in Major League history. And I think a lot of that had to do with Juan Soto right in front of him saying, good luck, like pitch, or right behind him at times. You know, like all that, like you have to pitch. And then Aaron Judge takes that next step. Like, and that's going to be what happens with like Lindor and
Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso. Like that next step, like, dude, like that's why he's like screaming, sign Pete Alonso. You don't realize he's an A- player that's going to become an A+ player, and and Lindor's like an A player, A+ player that's going to become like an A+ player because all of his at bats are going to look so much better and easier and smoother when you got Juan Soto standing there.
It's funny because Lindor, who's an excellent player overall now, could become a Hall of Fame player around Soto. Like he could actually Soto protecting him in the lineup could give him such a great opportunity to become a Hall of Famer.
That's one of the best things I've ever heard, because that is 100% true. Dude, I agree with you wholeheartedly. When Lindor makes that jump from like really good player who's now stepped up with the Mets and leading the team to a Hall of Famer, Juan Soto's the dude that makes it happen. And like we're gonna look back and go, Lindor, obviously Hall of Famer, man, great job. And we're not gonna lose in that conversation the dude before him, you know, like
it's because
you
they're
know,
gonna go into
Mark
the Hall
McGuire and Canseco would be hitting solo home runs if it weren't for Ricky, you know, and like we look at those things and like there's players that make other players so much better. Like Mariano Rivera wouldn't be Salmon, the only guy with 100%, if he didn't have one of the best pitching staffs ever for years and years and years, giving him wins, and the lineup giving him wins and saves, you know, like the team, you have to have the team. And like, there's players that can, like Ken Griffey Jr. didn't need anybody, you know, like there's players that didn't. Shohei don't need anybody. Shohei's literally half a team. Anybody. But like Bobby Witt Jr. seen like doesn't need, like there's guys, they're just like Bobby Witt's like Lindor this year is like Bobby Witt his first year, right? Like we're seeing like, holy crap, they're on the same timeline like when Lindor entered the league. But I think Bobby Witt has more tools. Sorry, I'm talking so much. I'm really excited about this topic. This is awesome. But you said it got perfect. Like Lindor's going to be a Hall of Famer because of Juan Soto.
I was trying to make a case for it and I couldn't, but maybe you can. Is there any way that Bobby Witt Jr. is the second best player in baseball over Judge?
Yes. And the idea of that is a complete player where Judge, damn it. No, I'm trying so hard. No. The really argument comes in the fact that he's shortstop. He is the premier position on defense. Shortstop. He's putting up offensive numbers across the board that's in line with Judge. Across the board, right? Like Judge there's blips, but there's blips on both sides. Both of them have blips above the other. And so if you kind of look at it like from a fantasy baseball standpoint, home runs get you points, but then also like all these other things get you points, they're probably really close to even because of that. And that's, for me, it's the completeness of Bobby Witt in the prime premier position versus the home run and driving in ability. But we've also seen Judge without other guys in the lineup, his numbers become very pedestrian to what we expect. Right. And Bobby Witt doesn't need those guys. Like Bobby Witt's at that numbers. The problem with Judge is now he's going to get the Trout treatment where we go, oh, you hit 45. Oh, like, you drove in 100. Like that's what happens when you don't have, like, when you're not hitting 62 now with Aaron Judge, you go 50. Good year. Like, yay. Versus like 62, like, and Shohei's doing everything historic. You know, like, that's what's going to happen to Judge. You're going to see him hit 50 and you're going to be like, solid. Yep. Versus like, dude, this is the best year. He's not even going to win the MVP, or like he'll be second, you know, like because some guy did something weird and you're like, that year was amazing.
I don't want to get into this too deep because we got a lot to talk about today, but I got a quick who you got. Are you ready? Before the second ACL surgery, Ronald Acuna or current Bobby Witt Jr.? You can have one. Which one you want?
Acuna, no, Bobby Witt Jr. the position. Only the position. That shortstop, everyone's gonna look at totally different. Like, but
40-70 for Acuna,
I think could do more offensively. Acuna could do more offensively. Bobby Witt position, and what he loses on offense isn't enough. Like, it's the position jumps him. That's why I gotta take a shortstop. I just have to with those type of things that he can do. And him and Gunnar, dude, I'm taking Bobby Witt over Gunnar, but just because you saw what Bobby Witt did with the Royals and how he's made that team like a real legit team.
I bought 4 baseball cards this week. 3 Bobby Witts and 1 Gunnar. That's
a good purchase.